I'm continuing Kilroy's Key 3, New to Me 2022, and now we're on to solo non-war games. I'll put a link to solo war games in the description, along with a link to the description of what Kilroy's Key 3 is, because basically that explains my point of view. P for presentation, O for operation, and V for value. And today, I've got some really good games that were new to me in 2022. And so let's get right to it. So these are solo non-war games. So I'm excluding anything that's like a war game. And so it's not making the list. Unfortunately, I took off McKee from my war game list because I didn't feel like it was wargamey enough, but it's also coming off this list because it's too wargamey. Poor McKee. Good game though. So take a look at that. And that's kind of the purpose of these as well. It's not just me rambling about my opinions or points of view. It's exposing you all to some different and new games that you might want to try or find out about or have heard about and want to just know a little bit more about them. So with that, we're looking at solo non-war games. And these are three of these are really solo specific games. These are intended to be played solo. I've tried to stay away from, cooperative games that you can play solo or multiplayer games that have a solo mechanic or a solo variant. So I've really tried to focus in on stuff that really is solo. And because I'm alone a lot. A man alone with his thoughts. Tell me where that quote's from. Just watched that series over the weekend. Really liked it. Anyway, I digress. So what games am I talking about? Well, this one right here, this one is, this is going to be hard to compete with my top three, but as you'll see from the content, but this is Final Girl. This is the kind of all-in mega purchase that has all the stuff for Final Girl. So this is definitely on my list. Next is Lux Alterna, which is a solo, very, very quick solo game that card and dice based, really card based, but there's like dice allocation in it. And then Set a Watch. So these, this is space in sci-fi, this is fantasy, and this is horror. So let's put it this way here so you can see them a little bit better. There's such a big box here. So let's get right into my point of view. And the first part of my point of view is presentation. And boy, do I have some good presentation or good production value to show you. Let's start off with, Final Girl here. I might have to turn the thing this way so you can actually see the Final Girl in there. And this, as I said, your mileage may vary. When you buy Final Girl, all you really need is the core box and one of these movies or one of these, it's almost like a VHS, right? One of these supplements to play the game. So you need one of and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you need the core box. You need one of these 5 and then the core box to play the game. So let's talk, and this is the all-in. So this production value is going to be a little bit better. This has the minis and all that other stuff in it, whereas normally you would just use little wooden meeples. But I'm going to show you this one here just to give you an example of some of the production value here. This is from Van Ryder Games, and these are all dealing with normal or traditional horror movies and tropes. Like this is Nightmare on Maple Lane. Can you have any idea what that is taking off of? And then you got Dr. Fright here. So each one of these has a location that has, like a map for it. And then it also has a baddie, somebody that you're fighting. And in this case, this is Maple Lane has Dr. Fright. So you'll have Dr. Fright's board here where you're keeping track of his stuff. And you got to realize this is based on one of maybe my top solo game of all time. This one's going to compete with it now because it has similar mechanics, but that is Hostage Negotiator, which is very thematic, and it's a situation where It's got dice, but it's got card play. It's a deck builder, and you're faced with several different hostage negotiation scenarios. And you're playing cards as conversation, that you're keeping the hostage taker on the phone, and you're trying to figure out what their demands are, and you're trying to get the safe release of the hostages. And there's several different scenarios that come with it, and then you can buy more, and then there's a whole expansion that adds even more content, and then an expansion that I picked up this year that I just didn't get to the table enough, otherwise might make it into this list, was the career mode. There's hostage negotiator career, where it's like a campaign game where you have the day-to-day life of you got to deal with your home life as well as your work life, and your work life leaks into your home life, and your home life leaks into your work life, and your promotions, and it's a really interesting campaign. It's hostage negotiator is already a very kind of different and difficult subject to deal with, and now you're bringing in real world living. So I mean, I can see why some people say, yeah, I have a day job, I don't need that, but I like it, and it's all good stuff. This is all uses the same system, but you're not using conversation cards. You're using like ability cards and actions, and you're doing different things like run and move and trying to recruit people, get people out of their house and help them with your efforts and all that other kind of stuff. And Dr. Fright, there's a new ability here where you're trying to deal with the dream world, because you can only attack him in the dream world. You can't attack him in the real world, and so it's really playing off of Nightmare on Elm Street. But so you have again, this has I got the mini sections that come with this, but this has, if you get the minis, which come separately, they have minis for each of the different final girls, and then they have minis for each of the baddies, and they have their own little terror deck. This is unique to Dr. Fright and what he does. So it kind of ratchets it up. Golly, can I even talk today? The difficulty level over time. And they have these really nice little magnetic boxes here that you can put everything back together. And so here's a location. Here's Maple Lane, and you're going to be moving the meeples, the victims, or the hopefully not victims. Instead of hostages, you have people in the neighborhood, or just potential victims that the serial killer or the horror person is going to be like taken out, and they're going to be in this city, and you're going to be trying to get them to safety, which are the green areas that like right here. Here's a green area, and here's a green area. You're trying to get them to exit this neighborhood. And you got to go take them, and it's kind of a pick up and deliver. You got to go pick them up, and there's only someone you can pick up, and you got to try to get them out of town and away from the stalker who's going around massacring everybody. And then you've got to build up enough resources and get equipment to take him out. And so each one of these scenarios here has a unique location, has unique cards for that location, has maybe even have unique equipment for that location, and then also has there's different baddie for each one of these. So that is some of the production value for Final Girl. These are relative. I mean, this is pretty big. It looks like it takes a lot to set up, but it's really not that hard. I mean, you've got all the stuff that you need for the core game in the core box right here. And like the rule booklet, which is not that complicated. This is your terror chart, or that keeps track, a horror track that keeps track of where you're at as far as time. Instead of using conversations like hostage negotiator, this uses time. And if you get here, he's going to be, he does more damage. If you get here, you get more dice. And again, there's dice in this game. But there's also manipulation of the dice. And you've got hit points because he's attacking you. And these wooden meeples are the potential victims in that case. And there's your action deck with some of the things you can do. So really good production value here. It also comes in this version. There's a mat, a neoprene mat that comes with it. That again comes extra, but if you get the all in, you get all that. So really good production value. It's going to be hard to keep up with that. But now let's talk about Set the Watch. Set the Watch has got some really good production value as well. It's kind of similar to Final Girl in that it's self-contained. You have this box here that this is the board. So this is your camp. Basically, this is a fantasy game where you are setting the watch. you're going to have a host of heroes that are, you know, on this quest, and they have different types of dice, and they're going to have different abilities or skills that you acquire over time. And when they're at camp, they have a special ability that only they can use when they're at camp. But basically, you have all these different kind of characters that you can play, and they have different abilities that you'll get over time and be able to use or develop. But it's very thematic. You're at a camp, and then the one person stays at the camp to watch it, set a watch. Everybody else goes out on the quest, and there's quest cards that you're going to be drawing that are basically going to be fighting baddies. There's all kinds of different baddies that you're going to have to fight, and you use your dice to beat the combat level, or use your special skills to beat the combat level. But there's a whole deck of these, and then there's some more powerful ones that you'll get to at the end that you have to face, almost kind of like a boss monster. But you're going to go through this deck, get to the end, fight the baddie, and that's how you win the game. And if you lose your characters or they get defeated before you get to that end, then you lose the game. But and that's like the horde that you fight at the end there. So the box is actually the game board. That's where you put the horde. This is where you put on use location. There are different locations that you'll go to as you're going on this quest that do different things. Either seed the monster deck, or or help affect your combat, or do different things, or affect your watch. And so that there's different locations in here. And also the watch itself, you have like a fire track here because you're trying to keep your fire up. The farther you get, the more you build your fire, the more you can see out into the distance. Again, very thematic, and that's how many creatures that you can see. So there's a creature deck, and then you're trying to see how far into that deck so you can make decisions, because sometimes the creatures, based on where they're at in the line, they might be able to augment or move around or do certain things, and your abilities might be affected by where they're at in the line, or what you might be better against certain creatures, so you want to move them up to the top of the line so you can attack them. Sometimes you have a ranged attack that you want to attack further into the line, and that's part of that visibility is based on this fire track here. And there's also abilities that the person at the camp can do as well, like scout ahead, chop firewood, to build up your fire. They can heal, so this is a way when you get back to camp, you heal up a little bit. Then you can also check the map. You can kind of look at different locations and stuff like that. And you also can equip. That's where you get your new abilities there. So quite a bit of stuff going on here. Really good game, solo-based game. And this, I think you might be able to play this solo multiplayer, but this is predominantly, I've only played it solo, and it's predominantly a solo game. And really good production value, as you can see here. And then the third game I'd like to talk about. Oh, and there's other stuff that comes with it. There's an expansion that just adds more stuff, more characters, more creatures to fight, and some couple of little nuanced rules there as well. Then we got Lux here. Lux is a really quick game. This is a card-based game. Basically, you're in space, your computer's failed, and you've got to repair it, or you've got to repair your ship. And there's several different malfunctions that going on with your ship that you're trying to fix. The art is somewhat sparse. I mean, it's fine, but like these are the different areas that you're going to have to fix. You've got your navigation, your engineering, your comm, your life, and then there's these error cards that come up that kind of throw a wrench into your plans. But basically, you're going to be, each turn you're going to be getting some of these cards and laying these out in certain areas, either to use their ability or to do certain things. So these cards are kind of a multi-use thing. And then based on what their notations are, they'll do certain things like speed up. Your ship is kind of, I think, going to a black hole, I think it is, or going to some kind of void. And you're rapidly going to that, so you got to fix your ship so you can move away from that. And some of these cards speed up your ability to go to that, or if you fix navigation or engineering, you might be able to move back or slow that down. But the art is cool on some of these things. It's relatively simple, but it's consistent. But it's a little bit of a puzzly game, but it's really quick. I mean, it says on the box 15 minutes. And that's about right. I mean, this is not, this doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a relatively quick playing game, one player, 15 minutes. But it's engaging. It's a game that you can sit there and play and go, oh, okay. After 15, 20 minutes, you can go, all right, let me try that again. And so this is something you might play multiple times in a row. And it's got a lot of replayability because you don't know what cards are going to pop up. You don't know. And then you make decisions on which areas you're going to focus on and how you're going to focus on it, and then how you play the cards. So each game is dramatically different. So, so presentation value. I mean, this is interesting in that you've got three different games. I mean, although Set the Watch and Lux are somewhat similar in those regards. Kind of bring this like this so I can actually see the things a little bit here. So in this regard, I'm probably going to go with, I got to get my keys out. And so with the three keys for production value, this one's really close between Set the Watch and Final Girl. And it's a little unfair that I got the souped up edition of Final Girl, but that's life, right? So I'm going to go with 3 keys for Final Girl and 2 keys for Set the Watch and 1 key for Lux. Now, as for Operation gets into the rules, the gameplay, if there's any player aids that help you out, and the like. This one right here, I'm familiar with Hostage Negotiator, so Final Girl wasn't that hard to pick up. Set the Watch was a little bit different, but again, not that complex to pick up. Lux was kind of weird because it's not that complex of a game, but it actually took me a little bit of time to kind of figure out what I was really trying to do there. I'm going to give that a 1. So now the question becomes who gets the 2 and who gets the 3 for Operation and gameplay. I'm going to go with Final Girl on that as well, just because it was, I like the system that was developed in Hostage Negotiator, but they took this to a new level. They took this in a different direction and they kept it thematic. The actions that you're doing as a Final Girl, like running and searching and planning, all those kind of things. And there's different actions at different locations sometimes, or with different villains that you're fighting. It's all very thematic and it fits seamlessly. Set the Watch is a solid game as well. I do like how it plays out. But I mean, Final Girl gets a little bit of a nudge there. So now we get back to value. And value is replayability. It's fun factor. It's in war games, I usually talk about simulation. There's not simulation here, but there is a sense of keeping with the theme and how each of these games keep with their theme. I think all 3 of these do a good job of keeping with the theme. In Lux, you're panicking about, you're reeling towards this end of your life, end of the ship type situation, and you're trying to fix things along the way. Set the Watch is very thematic, where you're on this quest and someone's got to stay back and manage the camp and set the watch while everybody else goes out and does their quest. Very thematic. And Final Girl really is super thematic in that regard, in that you feel like you're one of a final girl in one of these horror flicks. And there's different things for each one of the sets. So by having all these in one box, this wins on replayability. This one right here, although it does have an expansion, there's still a lot of replayability just right out of one box here, because there's different characters in there and there's different creatures that are in there. Lux there's, as I said, there's a lot of replayability just in that box as well. And this was the least expensive of these 3 games. But I mean, as far as where I would probably go, that I would keep going back to on replayability, it's tough to separate it out from everything I have. If you only have one of these, then your replayability is probably loses on replayability, but the fun factor is still pretty high there. This would probably win out on replayability just right out of the box. So in that regard, I'm gonna give Set the Watch 3 keys just for the value, because I think there's more game in the solo box. Whereas here you have to buy a core set and one of these, one of the different scenes to play it. Next, I'm gonna give Final Girl the 2 keys, and then I'm gonna give Lux the 1 key. little tough there because this one, because I think the theme is so tighter than in Lux, although the replayability might be just a little bit higher in Lux out of the box. So that's what I have it on the final keys. On Final Girl, so what is the key situation? The Lux gets 1, 2, 3 keys. Set the Watch gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys. And Final Girl gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 keys. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So Final Girl is the direction I would go. Now, it's a little bit of a disadvantage or advantage, unfair advantage, because I've got all this. This clearly wins hands down with if you have all the content. If you just buy the core set and one of these different vignettes, then Set the Watch might, start being a little bit of a closer thing you might want to go to. Again, one of the key things here, though, is theme. I mean, if you're into space and sci-fi, Lux might be your bag. If you're into fantasy, then Set the Watch. And if you really like horror, then there's no comparison than Final Girl. So the theme might factor into your decision as well. So that's what I have for you today on Kilroy's Key 3 solo non-war games in this regard. Love to know your thoughts or point of view on this. If you're a regular subscriber, you're probably here for the war games. So every once in a while I get into sci-fi fantasy Saturday, so I'll get into some of these games from time to time. But love to know your thoughts on whether you're new to the channel or just stopping by, or you're a grizzled veteran. What do you think about any of these? What's your point of view? And what are some solo games that either war or non-war that you think deserve some mention or nod here? Anyway, as always, thank you so much for stopping by. Greatly appreciate that. And hey, have a good one.
Thanks for watching.